meeting, and we're also broadcasting to it online, so we'll to see it attendance. I'll also note we may have some of our members online.
Okay, it's the planning board meeting of March 19th, 2025. Roll call. Brian Valentine here. And Bluestein is not here. Alden Clark
Here.
Holly Palmisano
Here.
Amy Pennington
Here.
Baker is not here. Matt Humphrey,
Here.
Jack Laterre.
Here.
Yeah. Jack, you there?
Jack's here. Can you hear me?
Jack is okay. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, we have no public hearings tonight. We have a number of general business items to get through. First of which is 49 to 57 Merrimack Street. Do we have a proponent here or online who can present?
My understanding, we're not expecting to be here this evening. I did talk to people for the meeting. My expectation is that we would, but this applicant dependent on the board vote for completeness, so we can have the hearing week of April, which will be the planned date. The office has recommended approval of waivers. We've got that too. However, in particular, the board may easily, as described, detail on. The real question at this time is it you can always during the hearing more information, and obviously the other in that process. So the office is comfortable with what's been submitted. Obviously, areas for more detail, with a waiver of the items that have been requested here.
So I guess we can open it up for discussion. There are two things to discuss. One is the requested waiver. The requested waiver of the board environmental and community impact analysis and lighting information. So we need to talk about that, and then as Andy is saying more broadly, of the application, so that we're ready for the next meeting. Does anyone have any comments on any of those items, waivers or the application?
Bob, before we go much further, just to let you know, I can hear you well, but it's Andy's microphone might not be working well. It's pretty scrambled. So I don't know if that's the case for the rest of the people listening in.
Okay.
Yeah, I have that problem as well, Charlie.
Okay.
Yell at the direction of the owl.
Okay, thank you. So it might be because I was not talking loud enough, and it might be because I'm talking through my laptop. So hopefully, is that better?
It is.
Okay, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So, any comments on waivers or?
I just had one question on the waiver for lighting. I'm not familiar, being fairly new. What does that give us or not give us? Like, what would be the
Like
logic?
a photometric plan showing the spread of light across the site. Typically, a project like this, and given its location downtown, for instance, you might want to have a little more detail about even down to the cut sheets for specified fixtures. That's up to you about how far in detail you want, but typically it's sort of distribution of the light off the site at the property lines, the type of fixtures, obviously looking for things like shoebox fixtures that go downward, not having glare toward adjacent properties or right, things like that. So you really have some discretion if you want more detail on those fixtures.
Yeah, so if it comes to the point where there's a butter and they're concerned about light, we can have that discussion. This is just the stuff.
Correct.
It's just
Correct.
informal.
100%. Yeah, obviously, prior to approval of a project, we want to specify sufficiently that you feel comfortable with whatever the conditions would be, because you wouldn't have necessarily looked at that. But 100%, you can require and address those issues for any butters or otherwise, for yourselves and then the city in general, at the time of the year.
And I mean, from my point of view, we don't need to get into excruciating engineering detail on it, but I do want to see for all picture types, locations for all picture types. Just at a high level, kind of color temperature of light and lighting levels that are anticipated. So it's, I'm not looking for the engineering study, but I would like to understand that level of information.
And now, trying to clarify, sometimes if you waive something, they'll say when you waived it, it doesn't from asking questions relative to.
Yeah, so if I could, this is, I'm sorry, Bob and I had a conversation earlier today, and just in brief, the way that I would mechanically address that is exactly is what you could potentially do here to the court. What you could do is in the case of something like this, is say we're waiving the submission of the photometric and the lighting details at the time of submission for the purpose of make that, you say, so put that motion, we'll convey that to them. All you're doing is allowing the hearing to progress or start on that date. It'll be continued as needed by the board because it's your determination when the hearing closes. And then, of course, if you're not satisfied with what you've submitted, they can revise, just like.
I have the same concern. I'm particularly interested in the lighting in the back parking area, given the adjacent.
So sometimes, well, now I'm actually confused. I had a similar question. I can understand and have no opposition to allowing to proceed. And to the extent that some of these aren't necessarily the bigger issues that we'd be concerned about, not that big a deal. We've had other applications too, including the city itself, who've done this. So procedurally, if we waive tonight, you're saying we could waive, but say you still need to submit them, or we could waive and say, but we may change our minds and submit. This seems like a fork in the road.
Yes, 100%, and that's an additional option, essentially, way of looking at it, another way of treating one of the items. As long as you're specifying or clear at this point as to how you're handling those. So for instance, if you waive completely the traffic study, with the understanding there of both parties, there wouldn't be a need for that going forward. However, that can be, that we may decide at some point we need that. We're just allowing the hearing to progress because we're not convinced that it's necessary. Started. You can put that cap just like you would for so it's up to you on those.
I think that's an appropriate way to proceed because at this stage we have very little information, right? So we want to have more and it might change our opinion on whether it's required.
Okay. Any comments generally about the?
So Andy, in your view, or Bob, in your view, it's complete.
Yes, yes, provided, however, that, and again, like actually Jamie's point, you put the category, particularly as the lighting, I guess I'm not particularly interested myself or having any concerns on the so-called environmental or community impact analysis or the traffic impact itself, just in context of the scale, size, location. For some of that context, however, the lighting I think is worthwhile to retain and to make it clear that you want some more detail on that and however you want to characterize that. You want those materials part of the hearing, or or you want to just retain the right to get them later on. I assume it's part of the hearing. In either case, that one I think is maybe it's probably one that to me makes the most sense.
I would clarify one thing. I think the information provided is adequate from the lots of comment about it, which I think generally we can put, on the table tonight and they can be passed along to the team prior to the next meeting. But there are design questions and a few detailed questions that I have like them to address next meeting, but they don't impact this. Well,
You almost have to have like preliminary.
with saying the package is complete, but I also want them to understand that there's going to be a number of questions.
And we don't have to have those within the hearing, but it's almost like we're reviewing the packet, having our initial comments. Is that the way you put it?
Well, I think all of those comments will be part of the next year's all of the presentations that they make, and we'll see where they end up after they get.
This is typical fashion of the office, but basically for any board or commission, these issues arise at a hearing. And especially, yeah, if it's not there. It isn't there, like there, like you see here, the comments. It's part of our job to, list those items, relay those, try to make sure that it's up to them to respond, to be responsive, so that feedback from the board's concerned, but, it's part of our job to make sure that we've emphasized and relay those things to the applicants so that they, can try to be prepared for the next meeting.
Yeah, included in their presentation.
The rest of that. So, we're happy to always, as always, we do this ourselves as well, we recommend early consultation, so we're happy to take your comments, and then hopefully we'll make your process and their process.
So why don't we address the waivers and the completeness, and then we can talk about. So I have a motion first relative to the waiver.
Do you want to do them separately or all three? Because we're
I think all through, yeah.
And you can have a long explanation to sort of summarize. You can explain for each one, we'll convey those to them. You can clarify, for each one, and then what the caveats are.
okay, just before, is there any other comments on other waivers other than the lighting that we talked about? So I'll make a motion that we grant waivers for the three requests with the caveat that on the lighting, we retain the right to ask for details relative to lighting as we go through the hearing, up to and include a study for the hearing. For the lighting. That's a little lumpy, you can clean it up.
I'm picturing a city council meeting here in which there's a motion to amend or there's.
Sure, go ahead.
Just as a motion to amend, I would say that rather than say we open the option for lighting, we want the lighting information presented and on file prior to the next. The other two, I'm happy with waiting.
So you don't want to waive this?
Lighting information, I'd like to see it. So there's no question in my mind, they should put more together. Submit that.
And I agree with that. The only thing what I was trying to clarify earlier was, naturally, they're going to present the lighting as part of their presentation. We're just talking about a study, right? We're just talking about a detail related to that or.
Well, I would say it adds the photometric to it, so.
Yeah.
I think, you might just do it the way, I guess, maybe accept amendments, the motion maker perhaps. Because you would at least have the distribution plan, and the plan also is that where those fixtures are. So as you're correlating, you want cut sheets during the hearing process, for some reason, don't agree that it's, shoebox out. Sure. You can require cut sheets down, for instance. You can associate the lighting fixtures we're talking about. Sometimes you're talking about, poles, and sometimes get down to specificity that you're concerned.
So I'll restate that motion as amended. We can clean that up, obviously, we probably.
Yeah, like what are you? Yeah.
That, say it's a motion to grant the waivers for the application submission to require details.
Well, I'll second.
Okay, we have to do a roll call. So Brian
Yes.
and here Alden,
Yes.
Gonzalo,
Yes.
Jamie Pennington.
Yes. Yes.
Here, I'm a yes. Matt Hepburn,
Yes.
Jack McCarron. Jack, are you there?
Yeah, I'm only hearing about 50% of this, so I'm going to pass. I'll abstain, I guess.
Okay.
So you guys will know, it is really challenging to hear for anybody who's not in the room. I don't know if that's important for you to know, but.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. I have been pleading for several years now to get upgraded equipment for the public meeting spaces. So we've been using these owls. I will follow up on that. We've been trying to monitor sort of as best we can the issues, but it's been mainly triage for us because we're not the IT people and we don't have the funding for the replacement equipment, but we've been asking for improved equipment, so, I will definitely be checking the audio, and we do try as best we can with adjustments, but unfortunately, the equipment is lagging.
Okay, thanks, Andy.
Okay.
Slide it over closer to, sometimes it really,
Okay.
it's sometimes trying to get the audience to sort of the speakers, so. It's hit or miss.
Yeah, so I couldn't attend in person.
Why don't we move on then to a motion related to completing the application?
I move that we determine the application for the site plan review complete.
Another roll call vote, Brian,
Yes.
you're Alden,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes,
Amy,
Yes.
you, Jack LaCare,
Yes.
Matt Heffron.
Yes.
Now, just for the sake of discussion, in terms of comments for the team. They're requesting, approval of a building that exceeds.
Yes.
And I have no particular issue with that height, but I also don't see any drawings that indicate the building in its context. So if they could just put together a street wall elevation of Merrimack Street that includes the buildings immediately adjacent and also includes at least the parking garage. So we can see the street wall height in relation to what's being proposed. I don't think it's an issue, but I think that's valuable.
I agree.
You also want to see behind, what's behind it, it looks like from the non-street side.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking what it'll block, right? That's always a concern, the site view that you see over the existing.
So this would be, for those, I don't know, for those of you who are familiar, there's sort of the dirt parking lot that's behind there, and then there's the condos that are up by the park on the other side, so, perhaps a photo from that, where the condos
Yeah,
are.
just so as the butters come, they don't, they don't try to describe it. I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Yes, it'll give us a better idea of the parking in the back. I was trying to look for that as well.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I know that they had done a rendering in both directions down the street, but if I'm not mistaken, for some reason, I thought that they had only uploaded the one looking sort of down toward the downtown here that you see, rather than, for some reason, I don't know that they actually uploaded the other direction, which was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's supposed to be captured in the angle that Bob was looking for, but in either case, we're committed.
Overall, the building is designed nicely.
Agreed. Yes.
Little bit of an improvement in that area.
Yeah.
Second comment has to do with the retail spaces that are on either side of the entrance. And I would like to suggest that the building accommodate retail entrances directly from the sidewalk. Rather than entering through the center, which is really the residential entrance, then moving side to side. I think those retail entrances significantly compromise the residential lobby and the functions that have to happen in there. And I think putting the entrances inside starts to limit the kind of retail and public uses that might happen in those spaces. So I'd like to suggest to them that they adjust the building so that exterior entrances can be accommodated. I assume that means stepping the slab a few inches in either direction, down on the downhill side, up on the uphill side. That shouldn't be a significant complication to the.
But if I could, Chair, I agree with that notion 100%. I do know, having heard the discussion once or
rights. We have to talk to the zoning administrator. I do know that there's been some discussion with the applicant about that issue. She had noted that they had looked at that issue and didn't feel like they could do it in terms of grading. However, without seeing that analysis and without seeing further information on that, I completely agree with Bob and that it would be really great to fully activate this section of the streetscape as much as we can. So to the degree that we wouldn't have just an expanse of windows, we would actually have some potential further activation than just the door in the center. Support that, take a look at it.
I agree that it's a lot harder if you don't step the slab. If the slab is at a constant elevation across the entire width of the building, stepping a slab, it's not. It's used like a residential entrance.
Is the intent that each of the commercial spaces will be single use and not further divvied up?
They hadn't indicated that, but the plans show structural, and I assume based on size that there would only be one.
Only 1,300 square feet, yeah, it's not.
No, I know. Curious.
But to your point, that would suggest even more strongly that they have flexibility in where the entrance.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
So that's worth talking about. I'm just gonna throw this out there. This is my own opinion, and I want the development team to understand this, but this is just my own opinion, but I think the re-entrant corners at each end of the building are a little unusual. I mean, this building is taking a lot of architectural detail from the existing building that's across the street. The way this center entrance is organized, the way the windows are collected, is all very similar to the building across the street. What's not similar and what's not very typical to Newburyport is the re-entrant corners at the ends. And that's further emphasized by metal balconies that fill in that corner. And at the street level, that empty space is filled with benches, which I don't think are particularly useful in this location. So I would like to propose that empty corner be added to the retail space. And that although I understand there are some detailing concerns related to balconies sitting above enclosed space, it happens all the time. And I would like to see the building massing kind of fill in that corner and hold those balconies so that the building feels more like a simple rectangle and doesn't have those re-entry corners. Again, that's just my opinion, and I want to put that on the table with the development team, but that's something to talk.
I agree with that.
So
Would it create an issue on the east side with visibility entering and exiting if they were to update the plans to accommodate that? Is that going to factor in with the entranceway?
Well, from my end, I would say I don't know that it would affect it in any adverse way. I know, and like it's certainly in the case of the parking garage, you know, with the entrances and exits we have there in the close proximity, we put some sensors and signs that sort of flash, you know, the pedestrians. I think this would be a little bit more space, given that it's on sort of as you're exiting, right? Given that it's on the left side there, given the angle that we would have there, I think it'd probably be right there without issue, but definitely.
yeah, looking at the site plan, you're far enough away from the corner that I think it shouldn't have a big.
Yeah, but it's a good question, because obviously we always want to look at from a vehicle right here, do they have enough sight line?
The sightline, what's working?
Next item, and again, this is just administrative, but there's a canopy shown at the entrance that extends out over the public right of way. And a variance will be required. So they need to acknowledge that process.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I could, I think the way that this will work is, won't be treated as a typical variance when we think of a variance for the zoning board of appeals. But rather here, this is actually very similar to your brother Lewis building down at the corner. We just had recently done, hopefully recently done, last few years. Everyone, so that has two architectural, sort of overhangs that are over the sidewalk, and part of that goes over the public right of way as well. So the city council want to do back, run through the process in the calendar year. Went through the process of granting the right for that to, stay above the right of way there. Obviously, there's a desire to keep above, height, any kind of, things we'd be doing there, like light posts, but at the end of the day, these things do happen. We have the firehouse has a little, canopy overhang, and these aren't necessarily bad things. They provide, obviously rain cover. So at the end of the day, that I wouldn't see here based on what's being proposed here, why there's any reason why the city council would object to, granting that. Obviously, I would see it as comparable. But I do, to Bob's point, given that that process takes a while and you're going to enter your hearing and it be continued and whatever needs to be resolved prior to any vote, potentially of approval, they could mobilize the process for the city council to review and approve that. It might be easier for them if the planning board process is finished and then it's just the condition for that satisfaction. But we could at least mobilize that. Typically what we do is we ask the board council if they're interested in sponsoring it, the item, and it's similar to what happened with the Lewis building just a couple months ago. They granted the rights for that to stay there because it's appreciated as an architectural feature, zero lot line, in the downtown, so the buildings come right up against the right of way. But there are sometimes with those building facades against the right of way, there are still architectural features that we want to benefit from, and that the, private owners can benefit from as part of our streetscape. So here, we support both of them, I guess, in terms of allowing that to be there, because I think it adds something to it as opposed to subtracting from the public interest.
I was a little concerned initially about this extending all the way out to the curb line, but there are precedents in the neighborhood. Calvin store, which is the old theater building, still has the theater marquee, and that may not come all the way up to the curb, but kind of similar to what's being proposed here. And the parking garage down the street has a flat canopy that comes out to the curb. So it's not without precedent in the neighborhood. So I'm okay with the basic configuration, but I just want to raise the fact that there's a process.
Yeah.
Just a couple of other items in terms of parking. And again, this is a comment. They can kind of take this or not take this, but the column covers that sit between parking spaces on the back side of the building are painted metal panel, which I think is asking for a long-term maintenance issue, because they're going to get run into. So I just want to put that on the table again to the development team, that they may want to think about a more durable material column covers, at least up to the height of where a car comes. The trash pickup, while I don't see another alternative location for it, the trash pickup requires that the truck pull into that 2-lane driveway while they're dealing with the dumpster, which I think might mean that the driveway gets blocked while that's happening. And I want the development team to at least think about procedural standpoint, how they would address that. I don't see another alternative. I think they need to have thought about that a little bit. And the last item I have, given this building's prominent downtown location, there's no discussion of what the roofscape looks like in terms of mechanical equipment and screening of mechanical equipment. And I think particularly given that this building is visible downhill as you come down the street, I think that's really important. So I would want them to address, number one, what equipment is anticipated on the roof, and number two, how they're going to screen. Those are all.
The only thing, and I didn't see it, but I might miss it, is that the signage, is that going to be part of this request, or is that going to be a separate?
That's a great question.
You got retail.
That's a great question. So in the downtown, there are specific signage allowances. So there are some things that they could do at a later point that are just compliant with that section. So if you want to peruse and see what those are, basically, some more, stringent or particular standards for the downtown and elsewhere, for understandable reasons. Some of the standards actually are carried over from the redevelopment. So, to your point, I guess, if you're concerned, you want to make sure you're looking at that now during the special permit process and put some constraints on that or review it in some way. That could be beneficial versus say, leaving it unanswered or spoken to, specifically in the decision or the drawings. And having, more flexibility there to, apply for the signage for that ordinance. I don't have a problem with that, particular approach. But it certainly would be very typical to ask for information about how they plan on doing that. Obviously, they want to be able to change a business name down the road, but you have the right to ask for a signed, signed plan that doesn't show consistency in the way the signage is going to be done in the building, things like that, totally within your purview.
That's my thought, because I think what happens sometimes is if the retail doesn't lease out immediately, then you have a situation where the retail owner comes in and says, I need a sign that's bigger, I need one that's whatever they need, or my business will fail, and then you're in that weird position of saying, no, you should have had that constraint when you lease the building, so even if it's vague enough in a condition to say it's gotta be in keeping with whatever, but they may have an idea now.
What I can do is I can tell them that there's the desire to have more information about how they want to handle signage, any details they can provide on that. And then in the interim, if you want to take a look at, I would say just taking a look at, we have a general sign section, which I know you've, have gotten sort of take a look at, you can see my markup of some edits, but looking at specifically in the downtown overlay district, which is further down, 23 or whatever section is. Looking in the downtown overlay district and just seeing a little subsection there that deals with signage as well. And then as we come back into that hearing process, you can decide, do you feel like you need to have additional stipulations that are maybe beyond that? Because otherwise those things will apply even if they don't walk in signage in any detail with you, those things will still apply. So if you want to modify or get any more detail on that here, that's then between you and the applicant.
So this time we could just ask to have some detailed thoughts on, or some thoughts on what they're thinking. And just, I mean, we don't lose our right if something comes out.
Yes.
Right, but it's just sometimes I like to know, like what the puzzle pieces.
Definitely, I'll add that.
I have a question on the landscaping or curbing next to parking space 12. It's not consistent. Some of the drawings, for
Sorry.
instance, that one has a little island and some of the other plans show nothing there. That's
Sorry, for this one or?
the one opposite. That's
One here, yeah.
yeah, that section there. That's not consistent on the various plans, so
Gotcha, okay.
it shows differently. I just wanted to make sure, like on that one, you just went by, just shows like painted lines.
Maybe they may have to alter that
Yeah.
as they go along for
Yeah.
fire truck or for being able to turn around.
I'm just wondering about the car leaving parking space 13.
Right,
Even the way that landscaping one showed it coming out.
yeah, so here this island that they had is right shown, right, yeah. It obviously is a,
More specific.
it's a tight parking arrangement, but it's like, but not ideal.
East side.
Yeah. I don't know if I can stick that one on board, so structurally, yeah. So. I'll note that as well, there's the discrepancy. Obviously, that's, as we get to the final plan, we can see what there's, whether we want to have that, not have that, whether or not it gets modified material. Surface treatment, it's pavement marking or,
Any other comments?
No, not for me.
Plenty for them.
I'll relay that. Obviously, they'll be coming back to the hearing. We expect that the first week of April. So that'll be opening of several different permits that you're actually reviewing and granting in association with that project. So the parking, the height, the use, and the site plan review. So.
Okay. So we will close that item. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is PHCR Incorporated. Merrimack Street and Stockton Street. ANR. Good evening, Edward Chandler, with the GDC. The plan we have for you today is to create.
I'm sorry, we have two plans on the agenda for tonight. Because I think, we also have the,
That forest.
Forest,
Yeah. Okay.
forest.
Anyway, this is the plan that they do bring up. It's the AM. There's more lots.
Sorry, for some, I thought Adobe had that one open, and for some reason I'm not seeing a tab. It does this weird thing when I'm running Zoom, so I can't get all the tabs. For some reason, it doesn't show it. Anyway, so this is the plan. So this is this is the lot 4A and 4B that we have as a special permit subdivision, and so the additional lots that are being broken up here, you can see the frontage that Everett showed, as well as the squares that are required, to fit in the lot, in terms of the shape. And this obviously is, for our discussion with the applicant and Jeff Roloff's their attorney, this is to break off this piece here essentially, so it's a little bit more clear, where now this is now going to be subdivided into the actual subdivision. These three lots really are sort of entirely separate, if you will, but they were displayed in the prior plans. We could all see how the land as a whole was going to be dealt with. So in essence, this is just a preliminary step to get to just the lot 4, and then lot 4 becomes 4A would be through your special permit subdivision.
Any questions or comments? Entertain a motion.
I move to endorse the A&R plan for 570 and 572 Merrimack Street, as well as 5, 7, and 11 spots.
Second,
Oh, Charlie.
did I beat Brian to it?
Almost was time.
We'll give it to you, Charlie.
That's it.
Okay,
Roll call vote. Brian,
Yes.
Alden,
Yes.
Charlie,
yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Jack, okay,
Yes,
Matt Heffern,
Yes.
I am also a yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Everett.
Now we have a plan.
Oh, yeah, since you have it up. So we'll move on to, forestry.
And this one, obviously, as you know, you've seen prior permitting on, so this is obviously to move a piece of land. And Everett does a lot of plans in Newburyport, so you're seeing it, typical fashion, the rectangle that shows that meets the, dimensional requirements of the ordinance, and triangle that you're seeing here, that piece that maybe you may recall, we talked about.
All right.
Conveyance, so they're, that area.
Jack, any questions or comments?
No,
I have a motion.
Move to endorse the A&R plan for 3840 Forest Street.
I second.
Roll call vote again. Brian,
Yes.
Alden,
Yes.
Charlie Palmisano,
yes.
Jamie Pennington,
Yes.
Jack O'Carroll,
yes.
Matt Heffern,
Yes.
I am also. You're batting it down.
Mhm.
Okay, last item. Hillside Living LLC.
Chair, I just like to give it just a brief introduction to this one, just because it's
There's a long history.
yeah, there is, and most people in this room are probably aware of the history. Wonderful project, new report, taking, development over a couple of years to build out, in different phases. And in brief, both the zoning board of appeals and the planning board has reviewed plans on this development in the past. What you're seeing tonight is actually tweaks to a limited scope of what was actually approved in the first place. in terms of the architecturals and the parking arrangement, up on the hillside side. So at any rate, this is limited to the review of those tweaks there, not necessarily the whole project. If you have further questions about that, obviously, I'm sure David and I can sort of walk through, some of those things. David has the rest of the team here as well. We can, walk through some of that as well, but in essence, this is only to make tweaks off of the prior approvals of the plans. And so what we've got here, I think, is their depiction of the sort of before and after of this. And then, we have, as part of the uploaded record, we can also help the original plan and the decision, but this is for that portion. So, for David.
Okay, thank you. I'm David Hall. I'm one of the owners of the project. Keith Moscow is my partner and architect. I'm sorry he wasn't able to make it tonight. This first started in 2016. I noticed when we were first decision, and someone told me I'd have my Medicare or finish this project. I wouldn't say it, you know. But I like to think that in doing this in phases, we are able to develop improvements to the ultimate product. In observing what's happening in Newburyport, how best serve the prospective residents of buildings. And many of you may know that we went from a concrete and EPS home system with concrete last building, just finishing, called South Rise, which is the left end of this screen. And we realized we really need to do a better job creating access for those, whether it's wheelchair or you're compromised in some way, to every level of this last. And we're dealing with a 16-foot topographic shift between erroneously called Fireman's Way and Hillside Ave. So it's a 16-foot delta in elevation between the two. And so that we had level 1 down on Fireman's Way, we had level 2 that you had to walk up to only from that side. And then we had level 3 and 4 in the last 2 iterations. So what we've done is we've created access to level 2 that was earthbound before on the east side. And what you are seeing is a recessed exterior walkway just above the parallel parking spaces. And there's a handicap ramp on the far left end now, and far right end. And so if you are compromised in some way, you can get to and from your unit without difficulty. And as I mentioned previously, you would have had to walk upstairs from what's shown here as Cottage Court. And really that's what this is all about. Significantly, to do that, we had to take our parking spaces, which in iteration 1 were parallel to the street. In your iteration 2, we turned them and made them perpendicular spaces off the street. But we can't do that in order to provide this improved access to level 2. So we're back to parallel spaces just because we couldn't make it up. We also have added trees on that streetscape, more trees. And lastly, and importantly, when we sat down about a year ago, I was like, okay, we're really ready to build this building, and I was looking at the western elevation which was 4 levels of livings, which you see 4 levels. Next, yeah. So top is first iteration, middle is second iteration in 2022. And when you walked through that alongside the bottom of that building digitally, that building was absolutely overpowering the pedestrian and even the units that were constructed and occupied in Cottage Court. Can't in good conscience do this. It didn't really work. So what we did is we knocked the building down in living levels to 3 levels. And we terraced it back to the east. So as you ascend in the building, each level steps back towards Hillside. You wouldn't know this from Hillside Ave, but what it does is take that onerous, tall base and all its shadow and so forth and pushes it way back. And we added a lot of glass, and we also integrating trellises and beams for greenery to grow and work its way up amongst those recessed patios, rooftop patios, and in bump ins and bump outs. If you go, I think, into the next slide, yeah, you can see the wedding cake stepping that I'm talking about. So you move from the right side of the image to the left. The only difference between these two is where the section is within the building. You can see, if you look closely, where that exterior walkway is on the building, adjacent to level 2. Yeah, exactly. Scaling back the building on the western elevation, parallel parking, and adding trees. The only other important alteration was to add all those trees, we needed to move a parallel space down further onto our property opposite the barn. And if you go to the first image, Andy, yeah, so you'll see as you go down the barn there were previously just 2 spaces, parallel spaces. So we took one that was in front of the HA building and shifted it down there. Yeah, that is it in a nutshell. The building size, square footage wise, is within a couple hundred feet. It's about the same. Worth noting is that the gables that you see illustrated in the elevation from really become south-facing side of the house. So we've done a really nice job creating some really good racking space. And on the common house, we are able to put our greenhouse on the top of it for seedlings. That is it.
Questions or comments? I have one. I had the pleasure of a tour of this project with you. You just have to smile walking around. This is such an exemplary project.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Sadie Wood. certainly, you know, I was studying, urban planning and then Sarah Holden, project manager. So definitely a team effort.
I think I told you at the time, having lived in the Netherlands a few years, this is a project that has those kinds of sensibilities in terms of sustainable design and responsible. You just keep doing.
Thank you very much.
I would say, given all of the discussion in town about rezoning, further residential, I think you can help us understand possibilities in other parts of the city. And I would love to have that conversation with you.
Certainly.
Just the general approach to what you're doing, is something that we need to understand. So I just you
Grateful for the
continue to do.
It's been a long haul.
So, we have a minor modification in front of us.
Do we need to vote to deem it minor? Or-
Yeah, if it's up to you, if it's simplicity, and given, maybe making too much of something here, but for simplicity, you can just make one motion to deem it minor and to approve. Just to keep it simple.
So can I have a motion?
So I would move that we deem the modification minor and to approve.
Okay, roll call votes. Brian,
Yes.
Alden,
Yes.
Charlie Palmisano,
Yes.
Amy Pennington,
Yes.
Jack LaCare,
Yes.
Matt Heffron.
Yes.
I am also.
Thank you very much.
Keep doing.
Creating some family stress.
We have approval of minutes. I've given you comments on, did you comment? Who did? Who like, oh, who like? Gave you comments.
I gave some comment.
Anyone else have comment on the 219? Can I have a motion to approve with comment?
I'll move to the 1925 minutes. Amendments.
I'll second.
Oh, John.
Brian? Roll call vote.
Yes.
Alden,
Yes.
Charlie Palmisano,
Yes.
Jamie Pennington,
Yes.
Jack LaCare,
Yes.
Matt Heffron.
Yes.
I am also a yes. The March 5th meeting minutes. I did not. So any items for discussion?
Just the signage ordinance, distributed, hopefully everybody got a copy of it. Let me know the signage amendment we're proposing. Councilor Harmon's been nice enough to sponsor it. We were at a scramble. We talked to a couple other councils who were helpful, and interested in doing it, but we're trying to get something in the packet. It took a long time it takes a long time to do zoning amendments, unfortunately, procedurally. So at any rate, the signage section is something that we wanted to clean up. We do have some other sections we'll be doing this year. And I think I've mentioned to you before, we have a FEMA map. We'll have to do that's the next one you're gonna see. But here, this is basically to clean up the signage section. And you saw the markup. I don't know if you have any particular comments or questions you want to talk about together here. We will, of course, have the public hearing. I think we're actually into the first meeting in May right now. For the public hearing on this, because we've been finding a date that was workable with the city council and planning board. But hopefully we'll get, whatever feedback we have from folks as much as possible for that those lines, might be a revised version that can be looked at down the hearing. But I think that my goal of that meeting would be to do an overview of what the ordinance is, does, what it's doing here as a tweak. And some illustrations of the type of signage that, we're either trying to encourage or discourage, things like that. Perhaps, one or two just to kind of get a size and scale reference point, but at any rate, this is an update to that specific section of the signage ordinance. The one thing to note is that signage regulations are actually in a bunch of different places for a few subsets around the city, like the downtown or the 40 yard district. So we tried to add language here, pointing folks, so if they are looking for signage, they see the obvious title of signage, for zoning ordinance, they'll at least as they're reading that section and naturally thinking everything is in that section, they'll be identified, look in this district, if you're in the smart growth district over here, if you're in the downtown district over here. So, that's the gist of it. Folks have any specific things you want to talk about as a group before we get into the public hearing. Give more opportunity to suggest answer provisions or just questions you have. Some of it might be for our zoning administrator, Jennifer Blanchet, because obviously she's seeing a number of the applications for signage that's coming in and has to review for compliance, and so see some of the issues that come along. So she's had input in this as well. So if you have any questions, some of those might be questions for her.
Any other update?
Other than the FEMA map update, like I said, just because of the federal requirement, we're presumably gonna have to get going now. It's about another year.
Can adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All votes. Ryan,
Yes.
all opposed.
Yes.
Charlie Palmisano,
Yes.
Amy Pennington. Zach Pater,
Yes.
Matt Heffron,
Yes.
I am a yes. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah. Good night.
See you.
Does anyone ever